Now, one of the reasons the cost of living is going to get higher is the government's net zero strategy. That's their policy to halve carbon emissions in little over a decade and eliminate them altogether by 2050. The government describes this as an achievable, affordable plan that will bring jobs, investment and wider benefits to the UK. That's their quote there. It'll help save the world from death and disaster, all that associated with global warming, apparently. The problem is that it's going to be extremely expensive. Back in July last year, the Office for Budget Responsibility estimated a net cost of the UK reaching net zero by 2050 to be £321 billion. That's just over 10 billion a year. But critics believe that, and it seems a pretty big figure to me, is actually a hopeless underestimate. They point out that the figure first used by the government when they announced the net zero thing under Theresa May was 1 trillion in terms of the cost. Some experts believe it'll be more like 2 or 3 trillion as we're forced to replace all our heating systems, cars, traditional production methods, and create more renewable energy. Now, of course, all this is a choice. It may be the right thing to do, but we don't have to do it, or we could do it at a different pace. Joining me now to discuss whether this is the right strategy is the Tory MP Mark Jenkinson, who's part of a group of Conservative backbenchers scrutinising the net zero strategy. Thanks for joining us today. Can you just clarify, are you pro or anti net zero?
So I'm pro net zero. Every Conservative MP stood on a manifesto commitment to reach net zero by 2050. And I think that is absolutely doable without making my constituents poorer for it. There are lots of there's lots of talk. I mean, a lot of those figures that you said there, Isabel, came out with there, Isabel, were taken completely out of context. There has been a lot of negative headlines around net zero.
By the Office for Budget Responsibility, weren't they? Those were official figures, the 321 billion.
Yeah, but they're out of context with what we'll be spending anyway, growth, all of those other things that, you know, will make 320 billion pale into insignificance. I just want to pick you up on the complete elimination of emissions by 2050 as well, because that is absolutely, this is where we go wrong, particularly on the media and those voices who like to chirp up on social media occasionally. It's not the complete elimination of emissions by 2050. It's net zero by 2050. Yeah. There will be continuing emissions, of course, way beyond 2050. There will be continued use of oil and gas. There will be continued use of coal past 2050. And that's for me, is where a lot of the communication has gone wrong. That's what we need to be better at as parliamentarians and as a government.
Thank you for clarifying that. You're absolutely right. We're not going to be eliminating them altogether. We're just going to be offsetting to the point that it is net zero. I'm happy to be corrected on that. Do you think, though, that the timeframes are realistic? Do you think that, in fact, we're going rather too fast on all this?
So, I mean, they're in line with other developed economies. I think they are realistic, and I think technology will be the answer, not limiting our lives or our participation in life. And that's one of the points that I make to my constituents quite regularly is none of us should be limiting our participation in life. So if we're going to, attack the Prime Minister for taking a plane instead of a train because it saves a couple of hours, I think that is completely the wrong outlook. What we've got to be doing is ensuring that what we do is that technology reduces those emissions, captures those emissions, comes up with new engines, for example. Now, one of the biggest regrets I think I have on our push to zero-emission vehicles, for example, is that the internal combustion engine of 2019 will be the most efficient internal combustion engine we now make because we've stopped putting money into R&D and pivoted entirely to electric.
All right.
I don't believe an all-electric solution is the answer, but...
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Of course, the pace of all of this is a matter for a lot of debate. Thank you so much for coming on.